welcome to the Career Coffee Chat podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Urban, certified career strategist and executive coach, removing career roadblocks so you can achieve more impact, influence, and income. Welcome to Career Coffee Chat. Today we'll be discussing how to build your brand virtually. My name is Aaron Urban, or Coachy Urban. And right now we're all working from home. We're working remotely. How in the world are we supposed to build our brand online? We don't have the depth and the richness of experience that we do in the workplace. We're working remotely. We're having to communicate through a phone call or a video camera, very much like this one. So it can be a big challenge when you're considering how to communicate your value, how to convey your brand when you have such a finite window. So these are very good questions. And we'll be discussing today, number one, how to show up online and build your brand and true to your brand, a sneak peek into the future of work and how that will drive how you build your brand in the future. And last but not least, how we need to build our brand virtually to grow your career. So how do you show up online true to your brand? Really good question, because we have such a finite window to deal with. We have this little video camera, and that's it. This is the window you've got to deal with right here. Well, hey, here's a first tip for you. Not every meeting needs to be a video conference call. If you're just having a one-on-one meeting, a phone call is just fine. So keep that in mind. But irregardless, we're dealing with a finite window of space. We don't have the richness and the fullness of the 360-degree experience that we do when we're in person, right? So what can we do? How can we build our brand? How can we articulate ourselves? Well, you have to show up online or on the phone call. I have been in many video conference calls over the last couple of weeks, and I'm sure you have as well. And I would have to say, by and large, well over 50% of the participants are not participating. They're just sitting there. So don't just show up and sit there. You can't do that. Showing up at a virtual event means that you bring yourself to the table. Okay? So what does that look like? Well, first of all, when you are just having either a phone call or a video conference call, you want to modulate your tone of voice. This is very important, because if you don't and you have a monotone tone of voice and just talk like this the whole time, it doesn't send the best impression, and it's a very much more difficult to convey your intent. So modulate your tone of voice. Leverage the different vocal range that you have available to you. That is very important. And you don't also put people to sleep. Number two, you want to use your face. Okay? Use your facial expressions, because I'll tell you right now, on every single call I have, every single video call that I have, I see this. Well over a vast majority of people participating in the video call have no expression at all. Now, they may not be in a bad mood, but it sure looks like they are. So here's something that you can take away, a tip you can take away and use today. Practice the neutrally pleasant expression. Right here. I will share with you that after a while, it starts to hurt your facial muscles right here, but you get a great workout. So leverage the neutrally pleasant expression. It is very important for you to make sure that you are conveying the emotion and the intent and the brand that you want online. Because if you don't have that neutrally pleasant expression, then people just assume you're in a bad mood. Even if you're not. But if you just look like this, who's the wiser? No one will know. So smile, use your face, and leverage your expressions, because people don't have that richness of experience. They're not in person with you. You truly have to ramp it up a notch and really bring it to show up online. So another thing is, be aware of your background. How many video calls have you been on that you've been obsessed about what's going on in somebody's office, kitchen, house, whatever it is? You can't focus on the speaker because they got so many things going on. Well, be aware of your background. Or worse yet, the camera angle as well, which we'll get into in a moment. But in the background, make sure there's not a lot back there that can distract people. Take, for example, this background right here. There's not a lot going on, and that's on purpose, because if there was, you would be so obsessed about the artwork or something going on that you wouldn't be paying attention to the speaker. So that's also important. Another thing to keep in mind, particularly when it comes to your brand, is whatever you have going on behind you says something about you. Okay? So, with that being kept in mind, again, I get it. We are working remotely. This is not a norm for us. This is not something we're usual, our usual environment. And just be aware that what people see reflects on you. For example, having a conversation or on a video call rather with a very nice young lady, a host of other nice young ladies, but one young lady in particular, she was obviously working remotely, and this was not something that was normal for her, but her workspace was apparently the spare storage room. And there was like a lot of stuff back there. If you allowed your brain to jump to conclusions, what you could jump to conclusions is that she's a really messy person. And she may be super nice, but she's a pig. And you don't want that, right? So you want to be aware of your background. Okay, so what is brand, right? So brand is everything you do, how you talk, how you look, what clothes you wear, whether you do your hair or not, the whole thing, and including your background. So the visual component and the interaction people have with you, that is your brand. Okay. So also, when we're talking about this, to have people get the right impression, check your camera angle. I mean, if it's looking up your nose, which happens a lot because most of us are working from laptops, right? Does it send the best message? Or if it's like over here in the corner and they only see half of your face, that's also not the best message. So just be aware of your camera angle and where you have it. The best location is about level with your eyes, so you can look at the people, look at who you're talking to, and really engage with them. Hi, Melissa. Good to see you. So let's get on to our next topic. So the future of work. And how is that impacting how you might want to build your brand in the future? Because it will impact it. So first of all, what we want to understand is that there's no surprise we will see a rise in remote work. No big shocker there. What might surprise you is, even though people will post-pandemic be very anxious to meet people one-on-one and get that social feeling and be very social, it will quickly wear off. And for many people, they will only be social with caution. So be a lot more caution involved in being social and showing up. So just give people, the benefit of a doubt, but that will also impact your brand. How are you being social at that time? But it will fade. And what will happen is the processes and the remote workspace and everything that has been uncomfortable for the past month will be more normal. So we will be looking at a new norm. On the positive side, remote work opens up opportunities for multiple roles in different industries across the world, or whatever time frame you feel comfortable working in. On the downside, it's really difficult to build your brand virtually, right? Hey, Louis, nice to see you. So again, remote work has its upsides and its downsides. On the plus side, it gives you a lot more flexibility. You don't have to commute to work every day. That's a plus. On the downside, a lot of industries will take a big hit. Oil and gas will suffer from lack of commuters. Real estate will take a big hit, and any services that help offices maintain their structure, like cleaning, food supplies, beverages, beverage companies, etc., they will all take a hit as well. So just keep that in mind. If you're looking for a job, you might want to look at industries that are actually supporting remote work versus the ones that have supported the legacy systems. So now, how can you build your brand virtually? We talked a little bit about how to show up online and articulate your brand, but how can you build your brand virtually moving forward? What does that look like? So first of all, what I want you to understand is share a little bit about you. This is important. You want to share some about you. And this is uncomfortable for a lot of people. So here's the deal. Right now we have, by and large, we're divided between those people who are more outward facing or extroverted, and those people who are more reserved or inward facing, or introspective. For those people who are more introspective, this is not comfortable for them. Okay, so they don't really like video conference calls. So if you can honor that and not have to have every meeting be a video conference call, that would be great. Just know that some people are super uncomfortable with that. And even some people who are extroverts are still not super comfortable with that. But, how can you build your brand? So here's the thing. Here's the good news. When you're showing up for a video conference call, it's not like an all-day thing, usually. When you go into the office, however, it is usually an all-day thing. So if you're having a bad day, no one needs to know it. If you're working remotely and just, having a video conference call, you can fake it through the video conference call. But here's something else we need to keep in mind. Authenticity. Authenticity is a big buzzword right now and was previous to the pandemic and will be continuing on through the pandemic and after the pandemic. And why is that? Well, one of the reasons that people have such a focus on being authentic is because even prior to the current crisis, we're being propelled into a virtual environment already. And now that process, that transference will be ramping up tremendously. Okay, so when you're in the virtual space, people know that, well, you can fake it, right? You can kind of be whoever you want to be online. And we don't want that. We want to know who you really are. Like, who are you really? What is your authentic personality? What does that look like? So people want that. And that is why you hear such a cry for people being authentic. It is because with our more limited in-person interactions, we need that sense of connection to someone that's authentic and that's sharing something that's genuinely theirs. Okay, so that may help you understand a little bit why there's such a cry for authenticity. So be comfortable sharing a little bit about you. Now, this isn't something I'm necessarily comfortable with either, but share a little bit about you. That's not work. Now, what I am seeing that's super encouraging is that there are many leaders who are putting into place processes and types of meetings that help people break down some of those professional barriers and share a little bit about what's going on with them, their families, their hopes, dreams, desires, etc. So this is good because it gets people used to sharing a little bit about them. Now, what you don't want to do, unless it's a part of your brand, you don't want to share all your dirty laundry. So be aware of what you share. Like for me, right now, my husband and I, we're quarantined out in the country. This town is about the size of 6 square blocks. That's it. It's very small. And there's a train, like literally right outside our doorway. Now, when we bought this house, we realized that there was a train there. But the first night the train actually came through, we're like, oh my God, what's that? So it's interesting through this whole pandemic that I'm having to show up online so much more and then really keeping my fingers crossed the train doesn't come through. So that's sharing. That's an example of sharing. Now, was that dirty laundry? Not really. But it was it gives you something, an insight into me and my life. Does that make sense? So that's a great example of how you can share safely, be authentic without oversharing. Keep in mind when it comes to building your brand and sharing your value and making connections, those who don't speak and don't participate in video conference meetings disappear. This is fact. Now, it's unfortunate that the virtual platform and the virtual landscape is very biased to those people who are more extroverted. So for those of us who are more introverted, more reserved, and don't really, it's not natural for us to just show up and share and chat a whole bunch, particularly online. build up the courage, build up the momentum, and share, because those who don't speak up disappear. Just know that it's for a finite time frame, and you don't have to do it all day. Okay, it may exhaust you for that 30 minutes, but you need to share. Consider what you might want to say, even if you need to prep in advance. If you know the topic of the meeting, prep what you're going to say in advance. So you have some talking points and notes, like I do right here. Hey, I'm not a genius. I can't remember all this. But have some talking points and notes to help yourself convey your intent, convey your message, and speak up when you are having a virtual meeting. So that's very important. So those who don't speak disappear. Very important. And also, here's the other important part of that. Because our brains love to come up with answers, even if there's little to no data, other people may assume that if you're not speaking, if you're not sharing, that you don't want to, or that you don't have anything to say, or that you really don't, care about them, or you have some personal thing against the people you're meeting with, which may not at all be the case. So just keep that in mind when you don't show up, when you don't share whatever experience you're conveying to other people, that it sends a message to them, and it may or may not be what you want. So that's why we're having this conversation, is because we want to be able to show up online and be able to convey your brand virtually. So also, I want to keep in mind that this authentic piece, what is that? And being authentic is critical. And it's true. So that's sharing a little bit about yourself, being true to your brand, conveying the visual intent you want. But most importantly, how can we transfer this focus on building our brand into the future? Because the future of work will be more remote, not 100% remote, but more remote, because a lot of the processes are already in place for people to work from home. And it won't take long for companies to wake up and realize that they can save a lot of money by not having butts in seats in an office building. So what does that look like long term? Well, you definitely have to polish your LinkedIn profile. And there's a couple of reasons for that. It's not that you're necessarily looking for another job, but how else are you going to convey your expertise, your interest, and what you can do? Unless you take over the conference call and go, well, what I did this week was such and such and such and such. You may or may not be able to do that every time. I will say this, though. When you're having, let's say, like general meetings, or all hands-on meetings, staff meetings, and update type meetings, be sure to, as nicely as possible, mention what you have accomplished. If you need to talk about my wins, hey, my wins this week were X, Y, and Z, that's a great way to set other people's expectation that what you're about to talk about is an accomplishment, a contribution. You want to do that. And this is very, very important, because particularly in remote work environments, people can't see you. They're not interacting with you all day. So they don't really know, they know work gets done, but well, at least they hope they do. So talk about your wins. Hey, my wins for this week was this, or what I contributed this week was this. Whatever language sounds comfortable for you, but you need to do that, okay? And take that mentality into your LinkedIn profile as well. Convey your career contributions in your LinkedIn profile. That is very, very important. Discuss what your value is as a person. And if you have skills that are exterior to your current role and you want to express those as well, make sure you do so on your LinkedIn profile, because otherwise no one's the wiser. Okay, so create your impact inventory. And what an impact inventory is truly an inventory of your career contributions. Explicit examples of how you've leveraged your expertise and knowledge to a net positive outcome for your company, your team, or your client. They are explicit examples. This is not bragging. This is simply stating facts about how you've contributed to your company, client, or your team. Simple as that. But you want to keep an ongoing inventory, okay? Now, what's interesting is this whole experience post-pandemic will probably feel a little bit more of the gig economy, which was sliding off a little bit to the side. Now I think it truly will become more of a gig economy. We are seeing very traditional companies break down those barriers and start to leverage more contract type work, more remote work environments, and more transitional type work. So that is what they're calling the business transformation space. So be prepared for that. And if you want to, speaking of impact inventories and business transformation, being prepared, join me this week for my webinar on your job search during disruption, where I will talk about how to successfully pivot your career, particularly during pandemic or during a crisis situation. And we'll discuss more about the future of work and how to set yourself up for a successful job search. So this about wraps up my time today. Thank you for joining me. I do have a book coming out this fall. It is called Elevate Your Career for More Impact, Influence, and Income. And that is coming out this fall. We are working on that right now. The chapters are finished and we're going through the editing process. So I'm very excited to be able to release that this fall, which will be very timely. We'll be certainly talking about reentry, and hopefully the economy will be starting to tick up a little bit and hiring will start to increase as well. But I do want to mention that don't pay attention to the panic button pushers, okay? The job search market is not as bad as it's being made out to be. I'm not saying it's good. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm not saying it's as bad as some people are making it out to be. I have clients right now that are being hired and going through the interview stages. Now, the process itself is taking a little bit longer, but people are hiring. So, and another thing to keep in mind, now is a good time to be prepared and start looking for a job. Don't wait. There's multiple reasons you should do that. One is you want to get in front of people now, because if they're accepting resumes for open job requisitions, they are not going to go back and reinvent the wheel post-pandemic. They're just not. Even if the role is on hold right now, they are not going to go back and just, let's start all over again. They're not going to do that. They're going to go back to the resumes they've already sifted and vetted and call those people. So you want to get in front of people now. You don't want to wait. The other reason is because there are a lot of wait and seers. These people will start to hit the market when we start talking about reentry. They will hit the market and the job market will be very competitive, even more competitive than it is right now. So it's important to be prepared and get in front of people. So I do have a webinar coming up on Thursday, and I'll put that in the comments below this particular video. So you'll have access to that so you can sign up. I do recommend, if you're thinking about a job search or conducting a job search during this time and you want to make sure that's successful for you, that you do attend that webinar. I will go into a lot of this in more detail and also be giving away some really nice guides and tips for you for free. So awesome. It was great pleasure speaking with you this morning. And thank you for joining me for Career Coffee Chat. Cheers.
Thank you for tuning in on the Career Coffee Chat podcast. It's been a pleasure. Feel free to reach out to me. My email is coacheurban@gmail.com or tweet at coacheurban, Instagram coach.eurban, or reach out to my Facebook group, Elevate Your Career. So I'd love to learn more about you, hear your insights, and what questions you have. You can find out more about me at coacheurban.com. And don't forget, please do reach out on LinkedIn. You can find me at Erin Urban. Until next time, cheers. Here's to caffeinating your career.